We've all done this. We have. I called while we're here today. Sorry, let me back up. We've all done what has caused us to be here today. That pin nut's dripped out. This is a 2x8 fatboy, obviously. This 2x8 was in good working order until the thunderstorm came. And no, it was not a lightning strike. He disconnected the amplifier before the storm got there, did not hook it back up, went to bed, got up the next morning and went to go yell at the locals and forgot to hook his coax back up. And once he figured out, oh wow, my coax isn't hooked up, maybe 1 or 2 key downs, here we are. Output power is down by half. And I said, sure, send it up. So we're going to slowly start moving into 2024 here, next few days. I've got one more major project, which is a full rebuild deal I got to do from 2023. And I'm waiting on parts, but the interim deal is this. I've got to keep going. I got to make room because I got to take on new work for 2025. Oh, yeah. Oh, we let some smoke out. So this has got two 2879 16 DO8s driving 2, 4, 6, 8. 8. This is a 2x8, not 2x10. Maybe the 2x10 is the other one I'm supposed to work on. But we definitely have got smoke and fire damage here. Let's take ourselves a looker. Got a burn up combiner here and a way fried primary output combiner here. Way fried. It's no big deal. Fix this standing on my head. So we'll take a look at this cap here, but we've got a blown pill here. So we'll pop these 2 transistors out. We can see here we've got a smoke 10 ohm resistor right there. But we'll pop these 2 transistors out and we'll figure out what's going on with this. Let me move you over here. We'll take a quick look at the modules here. So 35, we'll just say 30, 60, 120. Oh, let's see. 20, 30, 40, 50, 150, so about 170 amps worth of power supply for 200 and some amps worth of load. I don't know, Shaggy. I don't know. I like the giant green switch though. That is something new. And I can almost bet you the high-low without even looking at anything is, yep, we're dropping the driver out. We'll get into the minutia of that once we get the amplifier running. So, yeah, pretty simple. Seen way worse. Accidents happen, so we're not going to get excited about it. Just not. We'll go in here and we'll replace this, replace that. Get this figured out real quick and we'll get this turned around and right back out the door. So we have a little bit of a problem here. I called and I talked with the customer and I had to lay it out to him that we've got the big 3 going on. Let's bring you over here. Problem number 1, I actually asked the customer, how do you use the amplifier? And the answer I got, I was like, okay. I said, how much of this do you spend talking on sideband? He goes, exclusively, I only talk sideband. And I went, okay, well, small problem, bud. It's like, yeah, what's that? And I said, amp's not set up for sideband. He goes, but it's got a switch on the front for sideband. I said, oh yeah, no, it's got sideband delay, there ain't no doubt about it. This amplifier is not biased for sideband. Class C, Class C, Class C, Class C, Class C. That's problem number 2. Problem number 1 is it's burn up. It's problem number 2. So 1's burn up. 2, it's set up for Class C, and he ordered it so it'd run on sideband. And talking on sideband, he goes, nobody's ever complained. I said, yeah, the only thing that can't complain doesn't have words. It's the transistors. And then the big elephant in the room is the 175 amps worth of power supply and a 250 amp load. We know an 8-pill takes 200 amps on sideband fully chooched out, right? Well, another 25 amps worth of load here. So we have to think to ourselves for a quiet minute, okay, we have a huge deficit. So I don't know what the answer is going to be. I'm going to call him in the morning. But I talked to him and said, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to just repair it? And I can't make any kind of guarantees, no warranties, no nothing. This is what it is. We're just going to fix this thing. I'm going to pull these 2 transistors out and repair it. Replace all the burn up parts and wash out the burned out stench out of the cabinet. Or do you want me to actually set it up for sideband? And if I set up bias for sideband, it's going to pull way more current, like 30% more electrical current, just because of the way the circuit operates. And then we're going to be at a huge electrical deficit over here. So the obvious screaming clown in the room, you know, is he talks primarily sideband. And then the next major thing is if I fix it so that the amp section can run sideband mode appropriately and not damage the transistors or make his audio a little bit chopped up, then we don't have enough power supply inside the cabinet. Well, we all know the solution to the power supply. I'll put some HP switchers in this thing. I'll put 300 amps worth of supply in here and have a 75 worth of extra headroom and 75 amps worth of extra headroom, and then I'll probably put some terminals on the back so you can power a radio off this thing if you wanted to, right? Because he's running this thing on 220. If I'm not mistaken. We look at the plug. Nope, 110. Of course, it's on 110. Jeez, there's 4 problems here. This is the maximum amount that you can ever get out of a 110 volt outlet. Is going to be about 10 transistors. That's it. These guys just want to have fun with the radio, right? So let's look up here. I have to replace all the power wire in the amp over here. This whole distribution network for the 110 volt would change. Probably reuse the breaker. He said the on-off switch that he got that came with the thing shit the bed about a week or 2 after he got the amp, and he had to replace it with this switch. I'm like, dude, I freaking dig the switch that glows in the dark. I mean, it makes me have yammy moments in my shorts. I dig this. A big chunk, big switch. So, I think tonight, before I go up in the house and call it a night, I'm going to pull this two-pill section apart and find out if we just need 1 or 2. We're most likely going to need 2 transistors. The thing I couldn't believe is how long he's been talking on this thing in Class C. I guess he said he ordered this back in 2010. The problem is, in 2010, we weren't using these. We were using iron core transformers. And he says to me, well, is that why the damn thing's so friggin' heavy? And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about? He's like, well, it's real heavy to me. All I can do is laugh. I'm like, this isn't heavy. It's got switchers in it. So I said, dude, the old iron core transformers. Now, those amplifiers, you knew you were picking up some manly man weight when you went to go pick up one of them. You know, like 50 pounds, right? This is like 12, 13. And if I put HP switchers in here, it's going to be even lighter than that. I'm going to fix the 2-pill section. We're going to get this whole mess cleaned up back here. We'll get all the burn cleaned off everything. We'll put new zip ties around the combiner, put new flyback resistors or balancing resistors and everything. And we'll get this all cleaned up and put back together for him. And then we'll find out where we're at tomorrow. I told him, you want some time to think about it? Because I don't think he was really ready to spend, you know, the time and the labor and everything. You're going to sink like $700 into this thing to fully remod it. I mean, I got to build a whole new bias circuit, add yet another relay to this thing, and make it so that the bias switches, depending on what these switches do here. I'm just saying. And you really didn't want to hear the fact that we were going to have to replace these. Me personally, I think we should replace them no matter what. That's just me thinking, right? 170 amps worth of power supply, 220 to 250 amps worth of draw over here. Got to have this to have this. I think he might have got his dates wrong. Like, I would say 2020, because we didn't change to this style cabinet. Remember, it's only had 2 fans on it. This style cabinet didn't really become prevalent until, yeah, about the last 3 years or so, 2 years or so. So, decisions. So good morning. Okay, so I talked to the customer this morning, and where we left off yesterday is I was chatting with him and I said, hey, how about I call you tomorrow and you can make your decision. You let me know what you want to do. So I pulled the 2 transistors out, the one that was bad, and I stopped until I spoke with him this morning. And what he has opted to do is he wants to fix all 3 of the problems. He wants to tackle the big 3. Now I want everybody to be very clear in what I'm saying here. I'm not giving any shidiggity to ICA, the guys over at Fatboy. They're my friends. Tony's my friend. Wilson's my friend. Tara's my friend. All the people there are my friends. Okay, friends, physical friends. I know them. I've been there. I broke bed with them. They're good people. This amplifier worked just fine for a lot of years with this power supply conversion, or power supply in it. We're going to convert it over to do something different. So this was enough to work on AM, but for it to consistently work on sideband, we're going to have to take this out for sure. We're going to switch over to a couple HP modules, and we're going to give it a minimum of a 200 amp supply. So we'll use 3 modules. So we know when we're on 110 volts that each module does about 75 amps. Okay, so we're going to give it 150 with 2 modules, and we're going to give it about 225 by having that 3rd module in there. If you want to get the full 300 amp potential out of it, switch your amp over to 220. I'm talking to the owner of the amp now. We're just going to give it a little bit more headroom. I'd rather run at or slightly above our electrical load needs on the power supply versus a deficit, a slight deficit. It makes me feel better about things, right? So this is going to get changed out. We're going to change out some of the power wire stuff in here as well. And on top of that, we're going to put 1 new pill in it, and then we'll bias it for sideband, which is what the whole song and dance is all about. So on that note, I'm going to get to ripping parts out of this thing because now I got the full go-ahead from the customer. I thought, well, I'll get this thing all fixed up and ready to go, but then I thought, well, I'll be redoing work if I did that, just doing the minimum versus just going to bed. Hey, let's go to bed a couple hours early so we can get up a couple hours earlier tomorrow. And yeah, well, here we are with good results on everything. So I'm gonna, before we go any further, I'm gonna clean the pill pockets out. I'm gonna put the smallest amount of thermal compound on the transistors because it does not take much, by the way, you guys. Put that back in the box, place our 10 ohm, get our flybacks installed, and then pretty much everything else from that point on is power supply and bias. And I have a sneaking suspicion that we might do just a little bit more watts, and it'll probably run a little bit better for this guy, but we'll see. We'll see. I can add, very basic, you know. 200 amps, another 25, 30 amps here for the driver, right? Total 230. We got to have around 225 amps through the power supply, right? That's on 110. We put it on 220, and then we have a 75 amp excess amount of current that we're creating. Okay. Now I got you guys all up to speed. I can go work for a few hours, and we'll be back. So these power supplies here are what motivated me to go out and explore the universe, and then I had a friend turn me on, this 249 by the way, turned me on to these, which everybody loves. Okay, way less footprint, even less weight at this point. So right now, because we're wired up on 110, okay, when I flip the switch on the front of the amp, we now have a 225 amp power supply, and we have 225 amps worth of consumption. Now, that's asking an awful lot from a 110 volt plug. Okay, I want us to think about this for a minute. There shouldn't be anything else on the circuit that this is plugged into. Your normal house is wired with 14 gauge wire on a 15 amp breaker on 110. So don't be like the rest of these guys. Phones ringing like crazy today. Don't be like everybody else. Then take and plug this in your shack, and on that same 110 outlet you've got your computer, your monitor, an air conditioner, 3 other power supplies, you know, all your test equipment on your workbench, and your surround sound system. Look, it's like 7 amps or 8 amps each one of these poles. So do the math. Just 2 of these units right here were 14 amps, right? So we're asking a lot out of a 110 volt outlet. And it doesn't matter if it's these supplies, because the total amount of current consumption from these is the same as the current consumption from these. Now to switch this to 220, all we got to do is cut this plug off and then put your 220 plug on here. It's all pre-wired for this. You don't have to go inside and switch anything. That's the beauty of these supplies. They auto sense. When you go to a 220 volt input, or 240 volt input, and 120 volts, 15 amps. Okay, if you go to a 240 input, each one of these goes to 100 amp supplies, and now you have an excess. You have more headroom in the supplies, right? By 75 more amps. Keep that in mind. So out with the old, in with the new. Got the output section all repaired. I went ahead, and the transistor that came out of here had a gain of 5. So I just went ahead and put 2 new transistors in there. So 2 new transistors, cleaned all the burnt stuff up. I went back here and I dug out the melted down, yeah, that's how hot this combiner got. The melted down, burnt up zip tie, replaced that. Replaced all the burned up resistors, changed out the 10 ohmer. And if you would have not known I was in here, you would have never known I was in here. That should be the goal of every amp guy. The shit should look like glass. Everything should be nice and clean. There shouldn't be a little flecks of solder anywhere. We want it to look good. So now all I have to do is I've got to run a positive lead and a ground lead from each one of these supplies over here to the board. And then I got to run and replace, and I'm going to do power wire upgrades on all these chokes. The 16 gauge wire is too small. We've proved it over and over and over and over again. 14 would be better. 12 is optimal, in my opinion. But we're gonna upgrade these, and then I need to add a new wire that goes from here over to the driver's section. This is what was in there. So we're gonna give it a little bit of an upgrade. Just push it forward a little bit. We went and zip tied up all of our wires. Zip tied up everything in the front. We went to a common case ground because the power supplies run on a common case ground. And I want to get the power supply put in here fully, and get the power wires all in, and I want to run the amp and test it as it sits, and then we're going to go and add sideband to it. So that's what this relay is for here. So we'll wire that in over here. I just got to figure out which one of these relays is common switch, because there's 2 keying transistors, one to run this relay and another one to run this relay, and one of these has to switch common every single time. The way this is set up is that driver section, final section, final driver. So to make the bias circuit work, I gotta have a common switched 12 volt source. Even if that means I gotta add another automatic keying circuit, I will. I don't care. But yeah, that's where we're at. Mounted down with our Timberwolf custom mounts that have worked out really good for me and all my other customers in the past. We set the power supply at 15.2 volts. So after we have our loss and we come into operation, I bet you that this power supply will stand stiff at about 14.8, 14.9 at 220 amps. These are 42 amp modules supposedly. It's close, but in testing we know that they do about 30 to 28 amps. Just saying. So, okay, let's get some power wires run and let's get this sucker fired up. I want to play with it for a minute before I go in and do the bias mod. Okay, this is 2,000 watts scale, by the way. It's 1,000 average 5-watt slug-in reverse. We're running the bench 2950 into the amplifier, producing yeah, that much watts for drive. Like 28 watts. 1, 2. Remember, that's in the 2x position. So we're going to go and just engage the 2-pill section. Making about 220 watts going in. Put the high on. 1, 2. About 800 bird and 2,000 watts peak. So only 20 watts drive. Now we turn the low off. 1, 2. That's just a straight 8-pill all by itself. So everything's running the way it should. Now over to here. So we have the voltmeter here hooked up, and I've got it currently plugged onto the back of the output transformer for the 2-pill driver section. The reason I'm plugged in there is because we are the farthest away from any of the power supplies. The way each one of these supplies is set up is that each piece of wire that comes from each power supply is exactly the same length, positive and ground. So we got ground stretched out across this edge of the cabinet. So now all the ground current can run to wherever it needs to run, and it's really close to a couple of the mounting bolts, so it can run through the cabinet. And then the hot goes dink, 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 right? So this is the odd duck. It's sitting off all by itself. So that's going to show us the maximum drop potential of the power supply. So we're on a 30 amp 110 outlet at the moment. Power supplies are resting comfortably at 15.2. And I think my prediction in the previous segment was something like 14.9-ish, 14.8, something like that, if I remember correctly. Hello, audio, 14.87. It's a stiff bitch. This is good. It's really good. Really good. Another thing I want to point out is we'll see that we've got a green indicator light on this supply. This one's off, but this one's on. Okay? That does not mean that there's a problem with this supply. I've had 20 of these frickin' units, all in the same cabinet, and all of them will turn off except for one or two. So don't be thinking if you look down in there, there's a problem. See, now look. Just as we were sitting here talking, these two end supplies turned off. They're auto load sharing. There's no way. My big battery just fell off. Great, now I don't know where I'm pointed. There's no way that one of these modules could run this amplifier and keep this voltage up. It's just not possible. It's just not possible. So let me let my screen boot so I know where I'm pointing. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to drive the amp now. Hello, audio. We're still able to get 100% at a shmoo with both modules off. Just telling you that don't let the LEDs, and that's to all you guys out there that watch. So we'll turn the amp off. Modules kick back on. for it, wait for it, wait for it. That center module just clicked off. Doesn't mean anything to me. Module's still putting out its full power supply. So just keep that in mind, but we're in top shape. So now I know where I need to go probe over here to grab bolts to drive this thing. I take a choke and go from here, and then I gotta go build the parts that go here. Just to give you an idea of what I've got in this for time so far, I spent an hour and a half last night working on this. I come out here at 7:30 this morning and started working on it, and I am now 1:30 in the afternoon. Yeah. This is very time consuming, but it's worth it to me because I know I can send this out into the world. I never have to worry about it ever again. I know that it's got bias in it, it's got the right size supply, and the transistor issue has been fixed. Hello, 1, 2, hello, audio. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2, 1, 2. Only you. Now watch what's going to happen. This is going to drop as soon as we turn this over to class AB1 or class B. This will drop to 14.7, 14.6, because we're going to pull a whole lot more current on these supplies. But then we'll notice over here that our output goes up just a little bit. And food for thought, food for thought, food for thought. Well, Mr. B, we just got off the phone, and this is what I was showing you the pictures of while we were on the phone. These are our load resistors for the bias. These little chokes, these little blue chokes, they were hooked up to this solder spot, that one, and then there was one over here. Just took a drink of water. It's not wanting to go down. This is what makes it possible for you to talk sideband. These right here. Now, Barry, what I'm going to tell you is I'm going to ship you this thing. When you get it on your end, you're going to need to open the lid up, because I'm going to put bubble wrap on the inside of this. And the main thing is, I found with these amplifiers, these resistors, if you don't put some kind of bubble wrap or some kind of support, they can pucker up or they can rip off, right? But once you get to your side, just pull the lid off. You're going to take the bubble wrap out off the inside of this thing, put the lid back on, and you'll be good to go, good to run, good to go from now until the end of time. So yeah, we've got our variable all the way open on the front. Okay, now like you were asking me, when it's in the low position with the switch down, and this up, and the 8-pill selection, this is just the 8-pill board. So then you can run your other radio that does 100 and something watts. You can run it right here. Just make sure that, well, you're talking sideband, but if you're on AM, make sure that you got your dead key down low enough, okay? This is just the 2-pill section by itself, 8-pill section. So it's 2 going into the 8, and that's that. Sideband delay, good to go. Okay, so let's start out over here. Let's wrap this up with a smile on our face, make everybody feel pretty and happy. So that's a 1,000 watt element in forward position. We're putting our 28 watts worth of drive into it. We got both the, here's the 2-pill section. Hello, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. We're 2x, so let me show you 1x so it makes sense. Hello, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Hello, about 280 watts peak, because we're looking at the bottom scale. So the 20 is 200. That next big hash mark is 300 watts. Hello, 1, 2. We'll shut the 2-pill section off, and I want to show you what I've got going into this for a dead key, so you can get a reference. We're going to put a full watt. We're looking at this meter right here, Mr. B. So it's a 5 watt bird element. So, because we have a 5 watt, reading that middle scale dropping to 0, so that's 1 watt going forward. So 1 watt dead key into the 2-pill section gets us Looks like about 10 watts worth of dead key. And then when we put the 8 pill into line, look at that. 600 watt carrier. Look at that, 800 plus average. We'll turn on the multiplier. So now we're reading 2 times. So when the needle moves all the way over there to the edge, that's 2,000 watts, right? And it was stopping right at the 100 mark before in the last segment. So now that we got the bias in here, now we're over on the stop peg. So we're going to go to 5 times the multiplier. So now we're looking at this bottom scale again. So yeah, 5,000 watts. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Nope, shit, I lied. Middle scale. 10s 1,000, 20s 2, and so on. So, about 2,200 watts, which is about what we'd expect to get out of this box at this voltage with these transistors with this much drive. It's working perfectly. Your sideband delay is also doing its job. I don't think you're going to have any more problems with this. But brother, do yourself a favor. Love on yourself a little bit. Remember, when you have the thunder and lightning storm come to town, rehook up your coax. That's all I'm going to say. Just hook up your coax. And I'm teasing you, Mr. B. I think you know that. Well, gentlemen, this has been a very long, very busy, lots of phone call day. I'm mentally fried. I'm ready to call it a night. But what I'm going to do before I am done here is I'll unplug everything. We're going to put some bubble wrap in this thing, put the lid on it, and we're going to get it shipped out of here. And it's going to go back to Mr. B. Gentlemen, I want to thank you all that have come and supported the Patreon channel. This right here, patreon.com. Thank you for coming and tuning in. That's the reason that we've been able to sit here this entire time and enjoy an ad-free YouTube video. Man, can you believe there was a time where there was no ads on YouTube? And then they went to having 5-second skippable ads, and that was a big deal. Everybody lost their bacon about that. How dare they, right? Well, then it went to, we're going to interrupt your YouTube viewing pleasure by putting an ad in the middle of the damn thing. And then it went to, okay, now we're going to put an ad every 10 minutes. Can you believe they're up to 90-second ads now? And if you watch a 1 hour long program on YouTube, they're going to consume at least 5 ad breaks for you now in 1 hour. So a 2-hour video, man, I don't know. I think they're starting to think that they're NBC or CBS or Fox or something like that. Damn YouTube. Damn you. Well, gentlemen, I want to say thanks to every single one of you guys that follow along and watch. I know that a lot of these repair videos are getting a little bit boring, isn't like it's the same thing over and over and over again. I get it. I get it. Look, this is how I actually keep the lights on. Okay. This right here is what pays for the camera equipment, this thing that you're looking through. And it allows me to go off and be able to take a month and a half and hang out with my friend in Texas and help him build the largest amplifier the CB world's ever seen. I don't know if you guys seen the sneak peek video that I dropped out for the public last night, but it's there. I cannot wait to have a long form conversation and tell you guys all the details that are involved with that. That is coming soon to a theater near you. If you got any questions, comments, anything I can do to help you out in any way, don't hesitate to give me a call. I'll do whatever I can to help you. Big shout out to Penna. Remember, special promo code, get 5% off all of your sales from Penta if you use the code BBI. Shout out to XS, the supplier of all of our batteries and our supercapacitors and our LTOs. Shout out to Siglent for the love and the support of the spectrum analyzers that are up to date and are certified. Big shout out to our friends over at Bird. what little they do for me, and our friends at Coaxial Dynamics, which do even less for me. But still, got to give them a good honorable mention. For all of your alternator needs, go check out Blue Ghost. MacMan. Those two got a rivalry going on, by the way. And I'd love to have his sticker and his decal up here on my wall too, because he's a good dude. Gentlemen, I just want to say thank you for being here with me and helping support what I'm doing here. And it's time to officially start talking about it. I'm very slowly going to start taking on RO numbers for 2025. And this, by the way, guys, because my brain is mush, let me point this out as well. I took on a total of 24 amplifiers for 2024. I always leave spots 1 through 6 open just in case I have some special project that comes up that I want to slide in there. This is RO number 8 for 2024. So we've only got about 19 of these to go, and my plan is to be completely done with all of them by the end of the month. So it's time for me to start seriously thinking about taking on new work over here. I am not taking on any new build projects. I have one customer who has patiently waited longer than Jesus, Moses, and Methuselah all put together for some really custom cool boxes, and I'm going to spend probably the last tail half of this year putting those amps together for him. They're special powder coated. We're going to gold leaf some stuff. There's going to be laser etching involved. Jesus is going to come back, play a trumpet through his wrist, and pass the truss fall this time around, and we're going to actually be able to shove a corn cob where it doesn't belong on that bastard. What I'm getting at is I'm going to take on more repair work, but I'm not interested on taking on any new builds going into 2025 just yet. That might change towards the middle of next year. I'll let you know. But if you got a piece of equipment out there that you want to have sit on this healing bench in the year of 2025, you might want to think about giving me a ring, and let's start talking about doing your project. Gentlemen, on that note, I'm going to say I appreciate you. I say thank you. I cannot wait to be done with all the repairs in 2024, and we can start looking forward into the future. On that note, gentlemen, I am the biggest mud duck in Idaho, and I say thank you. I appreciate you all for being here. I'll see you. Bye.